Okay, just 1 second. Okay, so here we are. Welcome to day 2 of the Asian Blitz Community Tournament. This is a tour 3. We're about to find out which of the 2 teams that we're seeing right now will be advancing to the next stage first. So we have top 9 on the right hand side, and then Nuggies for me on the left hand side. These 2 teams currently should have a 2-0 win record for the last 2 tours. That's why they're meeting here today. And according to rules, the first teams that get 3 wins will advance to the next stage. So that means either top 9 or Nuggies for me will secure their basically secure the next stage spot from this point onwards. So we'll be playing in is there still a best of 5 today? And the maps should be starting from Vineyards, as we can see right now in the train room. And then it will be Faust for the next map, and then it will be Port Bay for a tiebreaker as usual. The first 2 maps will be played twice, spawn swapped after each game. And the first team that reaches 3 points would win the match and advance to the next stage first. The team that lost would still have more chances to try qualify for the next stage, but there's limited chances because in the end there's only 8 teams, if I remember correctly, that can qualify for the next stage. So half of the teams in this tournament will be eliminated by the end of tour 7, which is next Thursday, after the first game of next Thursday, and then it will be the next stage onwards. So yeah, we just gotta be waiting around here and just see when are they ready, and the game would start very soon. So here we go. Our first game of the day. E7. Well, we'll call him E7 from now on. Versus Cats. I'll call him Cats, yeah. E7 versus Cats. Vineyards. E7 looks to be playing the same TVP setups again. While Cats is playing also this time. There's also bringing 1 TVP into the mix. So both teams has some TVP, has some mobility into the mix. And both teams are sort of, well, they have definitely some focus onto C, where E7 is actually pretty heavy onto C. Hermes in the TVP getting punished while trying to be. Oh, he's getting shot heavily. He's 2 shot away from being the first casualty of the game. So it's just about who is able to get that kill first. 1 shot, he's down already. So Cat is already bleeding left, right, and center in regards to their mobility. But E7 is still pretty healthy. So it's actually a very, very good situation for E7 to be in, because they literally have all the advantage they need to perform. So yeah, it's really hard for E7 to throw us away unless they fucked up something really big. And E7 is trying to make a counter push, which is definitely a good attempt. But I would probably say this I think they might actually have lost the game in the moment they lost that first tank, because now the mobility is struggling a lot with only 140 with the TVPs on already. So, but they're trying to cap B, so that's a good attempt to try at least even the things out, at least even the playing field, so that they now have the cap advantage and make E7 have to do something about it. But E7's TVP are very, very active onto trying to get more damage done. So as you can see, the damage, the health point advantage is heavily in the favor of E7 right now. 1.27 versus 12.7k versus 10.4k damage hit points. So E7 is now smooth sailing, but they're not having the cap advantage. So in the end, it's really the cap game that will be mattering the most if Cats are able to hold on to this cap advantage. But if E7 is going to apply pressure like this continuously on their hit points, it's no doubt that E7 is going to win this game. As you can see, Crown Wagon down the river is already dead. E7 is also reclaiming base B, so now the cap points is now back into level playing field. Second Crown Wagon would be down very soon. Yeah, so there's now 2 tanks down for its Cats versus 1 tank down for E7. There's about to make it 2. But the IS-4 from Cats is about to be dropped as well. 7 hit points. Somebody put 1 more shot in and he will be down. There's a trade. So now there's 2 tanks down versus 3 tanks down. But hit point is still 3 double for E7. Even though they can start throwing tanks away, it doesn't really matter at this stage that they basically got all the tanks, all the tank advantage, and the health advantage. It's really hard to overcome at this stage. It's 1 versus 4 for a lone IS-4, and it's just a matter of time of how long it takes E7 to dispose him. And the first round goes to E7. Seriously? Let's go with that, let's go with that. Well, I mean, we can't see either of those anyway, so we can turn those off. Okay. So, let's actually take a look back what happened in the very early game, because that is actually what's basically sealed Cat's fate at the start. That's why I believe. Okay. So yeah, I believe what's happening at the start has basically determined the fate of Cats because of really just how TVP gets dropped so quickly. It just basically turned the entire game on his head. That you can't really ignore it. Let's go back to the second round. I'll try to fix the auto replays things there. This time the spawns are swapped. I don't see... There's still TVPs from E7, which they actually love to run, from what I can tell now. Cats have dropped the TVP after that unsuccessful attempt, which I think is a good thing, because they don't want you don't want to have mobility that's very vulnerable to getting caught, and then suddenly got no mobility at all. But the same goes for E7. It just depends on which team could use it better. So now the cap point advantage is on E7, as they cap A earlier than Cat's cap B, but then they're also attempting C cap at this stage. So the cap points might actually go in Cat's favor very, very soon. Y Tryhard is now tryharding to cap C, with, I would say, some success. But yeah, he's sort of tryharding the cap C, but in the end I think Cats would get this cap pretty much for free. Just a bit of health point cost, but they would get C. So now the cap points are in Cat's favor. E7 will need to think about some way to sort of turn this around. They got the TVP is down in Sector 4, that could be an entry point. Let's take a look. They're trying to explore this side of the map, but Cats actually has a very good defense here, so they might actually struggle a bit try to push in, especially with this IS-4 in this spot here. He's actually taking a very, very key position in the entire defense here. Without him, the TVPs are able to are gonna be are gonna be given like a free passage to push in. So his existence here actually slow down E7 a lot. So E7 has to figure out some way to at least get rid of him. At least exactly what they're doing right now. So they're trying to bleed the IS-4 here so that they can take basically entire control here. But the thing is, they're slowly bleeding more than Cats are doing, so the EVP should also be making their move as well on this IS-4. So IS-4 is now a 2-shot, now it's down. So E7 now has the hit point advantage, tank advantage, and they're now basically getting this entire area of land for free because now the IS-4 that's guarding it has been taken out. Now Cats is in the crossfire situation. Why try hard in the IS-4 is now being crossfire as he is in the top of the cap. He should be taken down very, very soon. He's down. Now it's basically E7 trying to clean up because now they got all the cap advantage they want, the hit point advantage they want, all the map advantage they have. It was very wise of them just to target that IS-4 to begin with, and then after that it's just basically free crossfire, free cap, and the win. IS-4 is about to go down for Cats. Both tanks in Cats now. The last tank in Cats is a 2-shot, and he's down as well. And E7 also reached 1,000 points at the same time, so it's 2-0 for E7. So, props to Cats at the start to be able to actually capitalize on having 2 caps, but after that they actually left a big opening for E7 to try and get back into the game, namely in Sector 4 where the TVPs are. So, come on Lolly, let's go. With him here, he's actually the key point of whether E7 are able to break into B cap or not. Without him, E7 would be getting that B cap for free. But with him there, it would slow down the push from E7 substantially. So by putting a tank there, Cats basically got half a minute of a head warning that E7 is gonna push that side very, very aggressively. But the issue was that they weren't capitalized on that early warning. So I let that tank die, but they weren't able to sort of reclaim that lost land. So what happened, as you can see, right after the tank got taken out and got pressured really hard as well, after that tank got taken down, Cats instantly lost a large chunk of map control. And then the tanks at B, they instantly have to start pulling back because otherwise they'll be in a crossfire from the Vickers in the middle, or they'll be shot by the Sector 4 tank that just got pushed in. So by losing that tank at that point, Cats basically gave a free way of E7 of coming back in and basically giving the win to E7. So now we're going to Faust. It's match point for E7, and they dropped the TVP. So they're only working with 1 Vickers Light this time around. So I'm interested to see how E7 is going to tackle this without the same mobility setup as they did with the TVPs. But at the same time, Cats this time brought double T22A2s that they're going to use for A and B together. So information collection at this stage for E7 is going to be very, very important because they want to know with this heavy lineup, how much ground they can take and how much ground the enemy is taking. If that knowledge is gained, they are able to sort of isolate those T-22s and sort of take even further map control. So as you can tell, they're being very, very passive. They're trying to get D without actually much success, but Cats are able to get C. So the cap point advantage is now in Cat's favor, but now E7 is grabbing both caps A and D. A might get contested in the form of a T-22, which he does reset the cap. So if things stays as it is right now, Cats would have the cap lead for the majority of the game. So right now, there's two entry points you can look at: is A cap, which is guarded by T-22, and B cap is also being guarded by T-22. So it just depends on E7 picking their own picking the poison of which cap they prefer to be entering. As now Hermes in the T-22 is leaving A cap, that might be their entry to get the cap advantage through E7. So Cats is also pushing up for D control, and E7 is being very, very passive. They know that they got E7. They know that Cats have the majority of their tanks there, and then they know that they need to have their tanks rotate back, otherwise, or at least be passive. Otherwise, Cats would get them for free. So it's an exchange of caps. Cats now gets 2 caps, as opposed to E7's solo cap of A. And also now C cap is pretty nicely guarded by Cats. So they compounded their cap lead, and they're sort of leaving less time for E7 to make a decision right now as to what they should be doing to try to turn this game back. So very good play from Cats to basically getting 2 caps so far, and they're not actually bleeding much at all. So that's a big plus, to be honest. So even if now E7 gets B, Cats would have enough cap points to sustain at least to sustain 1 tank disadvantage or even 2 tanks disadvantage. Well, not 2 tanks. It will be enough to sustain 1 tank so far. So it'll be a pretty big buffer for Cats to play with, coupled with because they got a less heavier lineup in the form of 2 T-22s as opposed to E7's solo Vickers Light. So it's now really E7's turn to try to find ways to crack open the defense of Cats. I guess you could try to look from C side, but the thing is, it would take them quite a long time because they have double Crown Wagons, who are the only ones that can really do the rotation. They can also have Nuggies to rotate, but I don't think with that health it's a good idea to have him be the rotator to push onto C. So E7 now, actually, E7 did something else. They're not trying to take D. So they're not trying to trigger a reaction from Cats. There's no way that they can get the cap advantage without taking the cap fully. So right now, E7 is trying to trigger a reaction from Cats and see what they can get away with. And he's trying to bleed them while doing that. But doing that, now they trigger the push. They would get C for free, but 7 Ruler would die. Well, not for free, but like it would go under very low pressure. He's 1 shot, and he's down already. So the buffer that Cats just got has just been doubled. So now they can sustain a 2 tank deficit, 2 tanks lost from here on in, and still be able to win the game. So it's really about how E7 focus fire. The Crown Wagons and the E5 in the middle should be the first targets to go down right away. Otherwise, they would have trouble winning this game right now. The Crown Wagon goes down, but Nuggies in E5 gets traded. Chrome in the E5 of E7 is also being very, very low. They have to watch out. It's a 1 shot. It's neck and neck right now, and it's basically either teams can take this game right now. It's really down to the mobilities of Cats, where they can capitalize on this. But it seems like Cats is actually in control in every single aspect except the cap. So only need 1 more kill to be able to win this game. And it's really up to E7. Well, Gamma's dead, so it's just a matter of whether E7's able to do anything before the cap takes to 1000. So nice job by Cats. That was actually very that was a pretty good hold from Cats. And I think E7 made a sort of I wouldn't say mistake, but they did but they try to contest two different flanks at the same time. They try to contest C cap in the form of 7 ruler, a D cap in the form of 7 ruler, but at the same time they also contesting C cap in the form of the rest of their entire team. So that basically meant 7 ruler was gone for free. So while they're able to get the C cap, they trade 1 tank for it, and it's really detrimental because they don't have the DPM to begin with. So, E7 didn't have the mobility and the DPM to really begin the trade, and they lost 1 IS-4. So that really makes matters very, very bad for the E7 camp at that stage. And the mobility of Cats was so fully functional at that point. So it's just an entire storm spell disaster for E7 because they lost IS-4 and the E5, which are basically their highest DPM tank. Actually, the majority of the DPM income, because the 2 Crown Wagons, as we all know, they have no DPM. The Vickers is a good DPM source, but the thing is they lost 3 of their tanks with higher DPMs than the Crowns, 4 at this stage. So it's really hard for them to call it back, especially with Crown Wagons weak DPM. So it's Cats did a smart thing to not focus on the Crown Wagons, but at the same time it's also E7 sort of dropping a stone on their foot by sort of consisting both sides at the same time. I can see where E7 is coming from, doing both sides at the same time. But like I can see where E7 is coming from of trying to pull that move out. But at the same time, we can't help to but question that question whether it's actually a good move, is a move that worth making or not. So, good job to Cats. They pull back one match. So now we're going to the second game of Faust. If Cats win this, we're going to tiebreaker. So it's really, so these 2 teams. I think these 2 teams are the first teams. I think there's 2 more teams that actually that also has a 2-0 scoreline. That's also about to qualify. So it's good to see that Cats is making at least putting up a fight, unlike the first 2 rounds of what they're doing. So Cats is still using double T22 setup. In this case, E7 also resort to a double T22 setup. The Crown Wagons are still there, while Cats only has 1 Crown Wagon. So the DPM issues still sort of exist, but not as severe as what it was last game, because now they have 2 mediums, so they got the mobility to sort of compensate for that. E7 is not consisting C at all. They're doing a very balls deep push, trying to catch T22s and other tanks off guard. They sort of got what they wanted. The T22s of Cats sort of bled a bit, but now they're in not the best positionings, and 7 ruler could be in a bit of a sucky situation, as we can see. So it's really up to E7's tanks to try to capitalize on this situation, because now they basically have 3 or more tanks being tied up, trying to deal with 7 ruler. So if they can make some progress on the other flank, which they're doing right now, Y Tryhard and T22 is now being focused, and it surely is about to be the first time to go down for Cats. So Y Tryhard is now down. Now 7 ruler is now being pushed at, but now everybody's on the lower ground for Cats. So E7 should be able to capitalize on this, as these tanks are all in very vulnerable positionings. 7 ruler is actually still alive. That is actually something amazing. That is actually very amazing that 7 ruler is able to stay alive that long. Second T22 of Cats is also being focused right now. But the entire fight is now unfolding on B cap, as Cats is now trying to make up for the hit point deficit, the cap deficit, and also the map control deficit by heavily pushing down to B, but they're not able to take down anything just yet. They're even losing tanks doing it. So it's really just E7 cleaning up by now, as their mediums also arrive to the scene. E5 gone down. The second E5 is about to go down as well, and it's just a matter of time that E7 grabs the win at this stage. So yeah, kudos to E7 for doing that. Cats were actually very, very tied up dealing with 7 ruler. As we can see, there's multiple tanks being tied up at the decap because they wanted to take out 7 ruler. There were, I would say Cats were way too focused on that. That the mediums actually got focused and got taken down before they even were able to take down 7 ruler. So it's I would say it's something of a wrong focus that Cats did that. Let's look back a bit. Let's look back. So Ruler was really aggressive at the start. So Cats basically saw this as an opportunity to get 1 tank kill for free, but doing that, they basically tied up 3 tanks. As you can see, Eyelion, Kujong, and then Common Lolly, let's go. 3 tanks were tied on to just try to deal with 7 ruler alone. But looking at the other flank, it's freed up the entire E7 team to chase on 1 T22 alone. So that basically meant the mobility of Cats actually got hampered very, very quickly before the match was even halfway through. It's literally 1 minute 50 seconds and their mobility is already down. So it was, I would say, it's not a mistake that you should put 7 ruler, like gives him some shots, but I would say it's a mistake trying to put 3 tanks to focus that 1 tank, because doing that basically teleported to your enemy team that, oh, your mobility now is very, very vulnerable because they have no support, like little to 0 support. So now go focus them because they're basically for free. And Cat's mobility also overextended a bit too much, in my opinion, that they're able to be picked off really, really quickly. So it's both factors at the same time. It was basically, one factor is their mobility tanks were way too aggressive in that situation, and the second is their heavy tanks were way too tunneling on that single ice fall that basically teleported the entire situation to E7, and they were able to capitalize on that. So it was both things at the same time. One thing is E7 able to pick up on that info, and Cats giving that info away. So yeah, hopefully Cats were able to fix these issues in the future. I really want to see them in the next stage, because they're actually the games they show, they're actually pretty interesting. The most of the stuff they do makes most sense if you look at that from like first sight, but if you look deeper, sometimes it actually makes sense to do something else that that benefits the team or the game, the game progress in the longer run. So kudos to both teams for the performance. It's actually pretty good to see how both teams did. So the next games are in half an hour. And the draws should be out pretty soon, as in which teams we're going to be facing next round. Oh. The hell? So it's telling me my shot delayed and it didn't even pen him. What is wrong? Okay, yeah, shouldn't have ram. Shouldn't even let him ram me, man. Why is Panther to have such like ramming kits and shit, man? Okay. So we're into our matchup, second matchup of the day. This should be like the highest, but these are the two best teams in the tournament so far, meeting each other. So King was able to take down, what was the other teams? They were able to take down TBB1, also 3-1. So that makes these two teams the first two teams to be qualified in to the second stage of this tournament. So in round 4, apparently according to extension of the regulations, they're now meeting in round 4 as opposed to them calling it a day. So these two teams now meet each other and see who gets the perfect streak so far. So yeah. The maps will be Desert Sands. Let me find it. The maps are Desert Sands, Middleburg, and then Rockfield. So Desert Sands is a map. It's hopefully something that both teams are ready for, I guess. But yeah. As we can tell, E7 is fully ready. Actually, I'm gonna call him King and E7. Yakuza fan club. No. I'm just calling him King. So now just waiting for the games to start. So yeah. So battle's about to start. We're just waiting for them to ready in the final touches. So here we go. E7 is using a double TVP setup, um, while King is using a solo T22. So that means they're playing very low on the mobility side. So it's really up to the Krangs and IS4 in town to do some sort of magic work to sort of make that selection worth it. But as it seems, as it looks, that not really paying off just yet. They bleed a bit. So now King is just only King bleeding so far. And I'm pretty sure E7 knows there's some tanks of King is in the town alongside the IS4. But anyways, King will now attempting to take outside control with only 4 tanks. Not sure if E7 is fully aware of that, because the information within the town is not fully apparent just yet. But they're now pulling back together, which suggests that they don't actually know that the 2 Crown Wagons are along with the IS4s inside town. So now they realize they spotted them. It might be a bit too late to realize that, but still, they're apparently I think that they're just making. They decide to make a push onto the town heavies, and it's really up to King to sort of make a reaction up on that. But Sarah Ruler is now staying behind, is trying to keep the King's troops slow, because with the tank here, they must clear him before they can go any further. So that means Sarah Ruler is now really playing a spoiler, and he's basically the bait, I guess. You can call it the bait. But at the same time, the mobility of E7 is now being it's being hammered very strongly. But so both teams lost 2 tanks already. But King have 1 cap in their hands. So there's a slight cap lead from King, but the hit points are neck and neck. Tank remains on neck and neck. Apparently, E7 wants to use the double TVPs to kill this E5 here, and leave the 2 and 5B up there trying to survive alone. So they have to do it very quickly. Otherwise, the hit point advantage would go into King's side, and it would be a really tricky situation if that happens. So the TVP is not reloading, and Seven Ruler is now being focused as a result of that. So he has to try to stay alive as long as possible, while the TVPs are reloading and trying to find a way in to find the next target that they should be shooting at. So Crown Wagon from King is the next tank being shot at. In the meanwhile, one of the TVPs has gone down already. So it's up to 7 Rulers to try to kill 1 tank out of these 2. And yeah, is he AFK? Oh, apparently he crashed. So 7 Ruler is now completely alone, having to fight 2 tanks at the same time. He's dead, and the Crown Wagon is, and TVP is next. The Crown Wagon is a 1-shot, so he might still have the chance of doing it. It depends on whether this information is being relayed from his teammates. Or no? Well, he's not even back yet. Yes, sir. That's unfortunate. That is really unfortunate that he went AFK in the end. Because that was actually a pretty winnable situation for E7. Where the 2 TVPs are low, but if they play together properly, they can actually turn the game. Like, they'll be very impactful for the game if they're able to work together. So, I'm guessing at the start, it was a matter of information not being found out at start. So that means E7 did not know that there's 2 Crown Dragons inside the town. Because E7 is actually weaker inside the town. If they knew that information, they were able to sort of capitalize on that and try to make a push for A side and trigger the enemies, the King's B tanks to do something. But not having that information, it prompted E7 to sort of see that there's 4 tanks being so aggressive at desert. So E7 thought that the entire enemy team is there, except the IS-4. But in reality, it was the other way around, where the Crown Dragons are actually inside the town with the IS-4, which I think that the information was not picked up by E7, and they didn't really actually make the guess of that as well. So there's a bit of loss of information around, but they still dealt with it pretty alright. I would say they dealt with it pretty nicely, except at the end game where they lost that where the TP lost connection. So nice try by E7. Obviously, fix the internet before we go on. And now we're going to our second round in the descent. Seems that E7 has dropped the TVPs in favor of T22s, which I think is an alright call. Depends on what you're really looking for, so looking to achieve with your mobility setup. But King has no mediums. So that means they're really gonna be playing BC side in the town. So E7 is already set up to do that, to punish that exact move. So the 50B is already here, bleeding the eyes for. So the E7 already has a very good map control. They even have now cap lead as well. So that means King is now in a very sticky situation because the 2 Crown Dragons at the back are actually very vulnerable to crossfire. So if E7s are able to peek here from the rail, right here, they're able to get free shots on this side, and they have to give up even more map control to E7. And E7 is now also getting B. So they're basically just compounding their map control and cap points right now, and King really needs to make something, because right now their positioning is not sustainable at all, and especially when their mouse is AFK as well. So none of what King is doing right now is sustainable if E7 wants to try to break the balance, and doesn't seem that E7 wants to break the balance, as they're not even contesting this side at all. They don't even see a mouse at all, so I don't even think they know where the mouse is. Or they maybe have spotted it now, they've spotted it, yes. So they know the mouse is AFK probably, but they are not really taking advantage of how how King is being cramped into the corner already. So, but they're still bleeding the Crown Dragons, which is a good thing. So now the Crown Dragon is now down to half hit point. It's a very strange and sticky situation for the King guys, because they're now, like, as I say again, they're now being cramped into a corner of the map with no cap lead, no mobility to play with. So they're really playing a very hard uphill battle at this stage, just trying to get anything that they wanted. They can't get caps because E7 got B covered. They can't get tanks because everything that they can shoot, they can rush is way too far. And I think, yeah, E7 played perfect in this instance in keeping distance, but also keeping their own property, in this case the caps, very close to them. So they're making them bleed a lot if they want to make anything done. Like that. E1 just got evaporated with 1.5k hit points just gone. And E7 would get the second round. So yeah, even Ruler didn't do a single point of damage. He does not need to, because E7 was playing very amazing gameplay there. They were all they had to do, all they did was take early map control. All they did was take early map control, early cap points, and it basically cornered the entire. They basically cornered Kang into a single corner. Basically, get 2 caps, forcing Kang to have to make a move. So that's where the brilliance came in. They're forcing Kang to make a move, but they're positioning the tank so that if Kang wants to make a move, they have to travel a very, very long distance and getting risked to be bled so hard. And that's what the brilliance is. You want to make your enemy to be making the move, but a lot of the teams don't make that one step further, as it making your enemies bleed from making the move. So as you can see, the E100 is gonna get 1.5k damage just because he peeked. So make your enemies bleed for it is a key part of how E7 basically won this without breaking a sweat and even having a 0 damage player. So wait for it. I think it's about time where E1 is gonna get deleted. There. That's 2 shots, 3 shots, 4 shots, and he's gone. That's what it took to basically get him out of the game. So that was really nice by E7 of how they set up. It was a really strong holding situation where they were able to capitalize. They were able to take advantage of King's slow lineup, and they basically exploited everything that they could in that situation. So that even they have 1 0 damage player, it doesn't matter. They exploited everything that they can, and King basically tripped themselves before the battle even started because of that. So moving on to Middleburg, King is so yeah, moving into Middleburg, we'll have to see if King wants to stick with sort of the same super heavy lineup, because it's really hard to get out to ruin a stalemate once it's established by an enemy team if they have the mobility control. So King now is taking a single T22. It might be a good idea to do that, but considering how E7 is now not taking any mobility, it could go either way. So it depends on what actually is happening. What's the direction of these two teams are doing. So indeed, E7 did not bring any mobility into this round, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like they're actually contesting C, other than putting 1 or 2 tanks close to it. So that means E7 is playing a very strong town rush. I7 from King might actually get caught from this push. If E7's gonna be able to track him, is somebody's gonna track him? No. But he's getting away by taking 1.2k hit damage. So King now basically already lost so much hit points and possibly 1 tank, and they're gonna lose 1 cap. They're gonna lose the cap lead as well. So none of this is actually going in any, none of this is actually going in favor of King right now. They get the C cap, they got the high ground, but that's where it stops. So it's really up to King to try to save their I7, because the Crown Dragons here could really just shoot the I7 at any time they want, if they wish to. Or probably not any time they want to, but almost close enough. So if I were King, the first thing I would want to do right now is to establish the enemy side's C cap control, which you're sort of doing, but you want to make sure the Crown Dragons also pull down, because they're actively putting the I7 in danger by having possible shots onto the I7. So if I was King, first thing I want to do is make sure these 2 Crown Dragons, whether they're spotted or not, get out of there. whether it be capitalize on farming them or just making them get out of there by even if they don't have to take any hits for it. So that would be the first priority. The second thing would be sort of assist I7 by pushing both sides of it, which they're sort of setting up for, but like E7 also has a pretty decent hold on the situation, so it really will take more than just standard push to get them out of their comfort zone. But the thing is, the two Crown Dragons are still comfortably sitting there, so this might prove very problematic for King in the later stage of the game, especially now when E7 has 800 cap points and they want to try to clear this side. They can't do it anymore because they are now in the cap. They're not in desperation of the need of caps, and they're not able to invest anything further into this side. But these two Crown Dragons are holding a lot of the areas for the team. So all they need to do is just sit there, and they're able to sort of contribute to the fight by just being there. So hit point is now in the very strong favor of E7, and there's a very big crossfire onto the tanks that are pushing into town. So King is in a really dire situation for King, that they're being surrounded, crossfired, they're being led to take cap, to just attempt to take cap lead, and now E7 already reached 1,000 cap points, and they took the win for this round. So now E7 is up to 2-1. So looking back, the initial push from E7 is actually very aggressive. They took advantage of King bringing a medium tank, so they basically guessed that, oh, if King brought a medium tank, that means that that means they're gonna be putting something up there in C, meaning that their focus onto B will actually not be that heavy. So they read the lineup pretty well, and they're able to actually instantly punish the I7 for 1.2k hit points, and also get a extra cap for free doing so. So the early trait really set the foundation for E7's success here, as the Crown Dragons here as well. They were never contested the entire game. So what happened was basically King let these two Crown Dragons do whatever they were doing, and they're not even putting any emphasis in even trying to contest this area until late game when it's way too late. So in my opinion, that's sort of a mistake, and you really should never let any teams have any tanks there, because they can really ruin your push, because they have full control on whether they want to shoot you or not. That means if you're up there, they'll be hiding. If you're coming down and pushing, they'll come up and be as annoying as they can. So ideally, in a perfect world, not in a perfect world, in the ideal situation, you want to deal with these two current dragons positioning first before you decide to push down. Otherwise, you're basically pushing down into a crossfire. Now moving on to the other side of Middleburg. It's ready up. Now, Eastern is not bringing two memes back, but we see now King is not bringing any mobility in this case. They might actually try to replicate what E7 just did, seeing their lineup as in pretty similar. No, they actually brought Vickers Light, so excuse me, yeah. So this means King is actually going up to the hill, but they're not contesting A, like how E7 did. So E7 is gonna get a cap advantage, maybe even two, as they're also contesting C without King contesting C at all. That's some nasty information collection. can he actually spot everything? Okay, nice. So they now gathering information where King is actually going after capping the 2 caps. So some risky move. So this is actually a pretty risky move that actually paid off decently. But the T-22 Nat backwards has to watch out because he's now being in the open. And King is also trying to get the C cap back in control. And does it seem like E7 wants to really contest it really strongly? As there's only one tank contesting the C cap. But on the bright side, E7 is now trying to contest A, which they know there's only one tank here now. Now they can make better adjustments onto what King is doing. With the mouse here, what they can really do is basically push the mouse up from the left side and force King to try to deal with the mouse or deal with everything else that's on the other side. So, it decided to go that path, which is also a good idea. I think it's the right idea. But let's see what he's about to do. He's just parking. He's not just currently parking next to a church. But really, E7 now has 175, at least 175 cap lead. That means they're able to afford 2 tank loss before the cap points start to go out of their favor. So now, them even more contesting A again, it just really means that King has to make a move, because it's really just E7 taking all initiatives right now, and King is just now being on the back foot. Like again, E7 is now putting their tanks very far away from the fight, while still being able to shoot the tanks for King. It's just really the positioning from what E7 is doing right now is something that they're making King pay for. So King has traveled this far, commit this deep, to even have a chance to shoot the tanks that were shooting them 100 meters away. So now they're bleeding a lot for things that people take for granted. So King may actually still get the upper control up at C fully, but it's gonna be very, very costly because of how E7 played that up there. So the last E5 here is gonna make a run for him because he's still full health. He can actually reunite with his team and still be very, very useful instead of trying to be here and try to buy time. So now E7 is only 130 points away from winning the game. I'll correct that, 110 points from winning the game. So E7, King really needs to start stopping the cap right now. Otherwise, they will lose the game. Their Vickers would go down very soon, and if that happens, it's game over as well. So at this stage, it's really up to E7 to not die, and they will win. So by getting the cap points, E7 basically secured their own victory. So looking back, so E7 actually got a lot of cap advantage to begin with. So contesting A could be considered as a risky move, but in this case it didn't attract any counter push from King. So in the end, it was King basically losing multiple cap. Like they don't have a cap lead from start to end, but they weren't even able to stop the neutral A cap from going into E7's hands. And couple that with in the late game, E7 was actually able to recap C again. That really makes the cap game a very, very bad perspective from King's side. So King basically completely lost the cap game, and they're also being made forced to push very, very deep, commits very, very deep to even have a chance to fight the enemy tanks. So E7 played. So rather than E7, well, E7 played very well in the C side, but it's really just King missing the ball on both fronts, whether it be the cap game or even the push game. In this situation, like yeah, it's really King missing the ball on both sides, and E7 basically breezed past after because of that. So kudos to E7 for bringing that far. It was a pretty good match of seeing how E7 just exploited different tendencies of King. Also, not a good job for King for at least making an attempt out of it. At least they got the first round where the TVPs were AFK. But still, yeah, nice try. I would say there's definitely things that King can definitely work on to improve to try and fix. But all in all, they did pretty solid. It was just basically some of the you just need to go one step further than your enemy to do something like E7 did to King. So all E7 did was just think one step ahead. Not all the time though. So like they always have some risk factor involved, which I think is alright thing if you're E7, because you're actually winning like you're winning pretty nicely. Taking a bit more risk just makes you secure that win a bit better, a bit more, and also allows you to capitalize on enemies panicking on the rotation and stuff. So I don't disagree on taking a bit more risk, even though you have the advantages already. So in this case, the risk sort of paid off even more by having even the extra A cap. So yeah, kudos to E7 for doing that. Like I feel like it's something that a lot of teams, like some teams do, but not enough teams do. As in going one step further and bringing your opponents, and also taking that extra risk to just ensure you win the game. Well, in that case, the risk they took was having an IS-4 being an A side, being overcommitted. The risk that they're taking is that IS-4 is gonna die from enemy counter push. But at the same time, if an enemy counter pushed, the mouse is in sort of the perfect position to relay that back to their team. So it's not a totally free tank to take. E7 also came well prepared to make sure that the risk that they took was sort of well calculated. So it's just a matter of whether whether King is just gonna take the bait, or whether they're gonna play something that's gonna play into E7's hand as well. So in both fronts, E7 sort of played a bit of one step further compared to King, and you can see how King's reaction, like King is really like passive team that's reacting to what E7 is presenting to him and not trying to take initiative, and that's like the issue that I see from King's gameplay today. So if King is able to start to take a bit of initiatives, I feel like they can actually turn some of these situations around. So yeah, these were pretty good games that we see today from both teams, from all the teams today, and we'll be back next Thursday for the last Swiss round that will determine which teams are actually going to be in the second stage. I'll be streaming those as well. Might not be streaming E7 though, because E7 now has been confirmed to be in the next stage, so there's really no point streaming them. But I'll consider that. I'll see what teams are interesting to stream, and I'll probably do that. So we'll be back next Thursday to go for a last tour of the first stage to determine who will be the last team to be in the second stage, and we'll also kick off the first game of the second stage on Thursday as well. So until then, stay safe, and I'll catch you guys later.